Latest episode of Better Humans at Work. I'm thrilled to be joined by Alyssa Grocutt. Am I getting that right? Grocutt? Grocutt?
Grow cut.
Grocutt. Oh, it's like very French
Grow.
sound. Alyssa.
No, it's like grow cut, like growing and cutting your hair.
Oh, Grocutt. Okay, Alyssa Grocutt, who is a PhD candidate in organizational behavior at the Smith School of Business, Queen's University in Kingston, Ontario, Canada. Alyssa completed her master's at the Smith School of Business in 2021 and earned a bachelor's in psychology with a minor in sociology from the University of Calgary in 2020. Her research explores tattoos in the workplace, focusing on how tattoo content influences employee perceptions and the treatment of tattooed colleagues. Alyssa is passionate about knowledge translation, as am I, and committed to making academic research more accessible to the public. Thanks for joining us today, Alyssa.
Thanks so much for having me. I am happy to be here.
I was just sharing before we hit the button to go. I've been watching a lot of Alyssa's videos on Instagram. If you don't follow her on the gram, you should, because they're great videos talking about how tattoos are, they can hurt people in the workplace. They shouldn't. What should we be doing instead when it comes to tattoos in the workplace? And just really great, highly translatable content. I think you're doing a really great job getting that message out there. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much. I'm happy that you follow me, and it's been a lot of fun doing those videos.
What gave you the idea to do those videos in the first place?
So, as you read in my from my bio, I'm really interested in the knowledge translation and dissemination, and I think in academia there's so much great research, but it doesn't get out to the people that it could affect. And a lot of just regular everyday people don't know about the research out there. So I wanted to find ways to communicate it. And when I was talking to people in industry, because the master's that I did is research based, and there are some people that will enter, like they won't continue on to a PhD. And so I was talking to some of them, asking, like, how do you stay connected to research? How do you find out what's going on in research? And they told me social media is one of the ways. LinkedIn, which I was already active on. Another one was Instagram. Like, that's super great. There's a lot of misinformation out there on Instagram, but I think it's a great way and it can be so entertaining or engaging to interact with people on there. And so I've thought about it for years now, and I finally just did it a couple months ago because I was always trying to find like the perfect way to do it. But of course, there's never a perfect way. So just got to start somewhere. And I think it's going pretty well so far.
Have you found that you've gotten a lot more followers?
Yeah, I started it February 18th and now it's April 21st, so 2 months, and I have over 3,000 followers,
Oh, wow.
which I didn't expect to grow that quickly. I think there's a handful of people that are just there because tattoos are cool. But people do seem to be actually interacting with the research content and enjoying it. So hopefully that continues.
And hopefully you being on this show today, definitely go follow Alyssa on Instagram. What is your Instagram handle for those watching?
It's my first and last name, so Alyssa Grocutt, Alyssa Grocutt.
There you go, right on the screen. So go follow her on Instagram if you're on the gram. So how did you get interested in this line of research?
Uh, the tattoo specifically.
Mm-hmm.
So clearly, I love tattoos, as you can see by how many I have. And I thought it was really cool that there was research on it. I did a paper on tattoos in selection, recruitment and selection for an undergrad course when I was doing my bachelor's in psychology. And then I kind of didn't really think too much about it. And fast forward to PhD, I was actually researching workplace safety, specifically the consequences of work injuries and fatalities for the quote unquote indirect victims. So, family members, coworkers, and leaders. Now, that's a very personal connection for me. My dad was killed in a workplace safety incident when I was a kid. So, it was a really meaningful line of research, but I found once I was doing it all day, every day, it was very emotionally draining. So I was thinking, what else could I research that I'm super interested in and passionate about, but isn't as emotional? And I thought, oh, there's that line of research about tattoos that I was interested in before. So it started off kind of more as a side project. My supervisor and I thinking, okay, this could be a little mental getaway from workplace safety for me. And then it turned into my dissertation.
That's great. I love when that happens. And I always say, like, aside from the best dissertation being a done dissertation,
Yeah.
choosing a topic that's really, really interesting to you, I think is really pivotal to get through the process. So good on you for picking a fascinating topic.
Yeah, thanks. And it's nice because there's not a ton of research on tattoos in the workplace, which pros and cons. On the one hand, it's nice because there's so many options for what to do. But then on the other hand, it's like there's almost too many options. And at one point, my supervisor was like, Alyssa, you have to stop coming up with 63 different ideas and just choose.
So what did you land on?
So I tried to build off of what was already done in the research because what I'm really interested in is ideas of authenticity and identity tied to tattoos. So I was thinking about going down that road, but that would be kind of starting a whole new path. So I'm looking at tattoo content, and there's so many different styles of tattoos and types of tattoos, but very broadly, like more friendly tattoos versus more intimidating tattoos is, I guess, the key focus of my research and on the job. So a lot of the research is in hiring because, of course, first step to workplace issues is getting hired in the first place. And with tattoos, like there's the common saying of job stoppers with like hand, neck, and face tattoos. So a lot of the research was in that field. So I was more interested in, okay, tattooed people are still getting hired, they're still employed in a lot of cases. So, how are they treated once they're on the job? So, looking at how workers with the two different categories of tattoos are treated maybe differently by their colleagues.
Okay. And then any preliminary findings that you can share with us?
Yeah, so workers with light, so sorry, friendly. I say light because that's what's in the research, but it's kind of confusing because it's not about shade, it's about the
Yeah.
content. But workers with friendly tattoos are perceived generally the same as workers with no tattoos, and they're treated the same. Workers with intimidating tattoos, though, are perceived as more risky and more artistic. So there's this
Mhm.
positive negative. So that goes into treatment as well. Workers with intimidating tattoos are more likely to be discriminated against through those perceptions that they're risky, but at the same time, they're less likely to be discriminated against through those perceptions that they're artistic.
That's really interesting. It's you get the risky, but then you get the artistic part too, because artistic, I'm sure, is related to innovation and creativity, which is something, depending on the job, you really want someone to bring into the organization. Um,
Yeah.
and I can't help but kind of take it like out a little bit, zoom it out a little bit, and thinking about visible differences just in general. So not just
Mhm.
tattoos, but I know there's research that finds that overweight employees or obese employees are
Yeah.
considered to be lazy because of their weight, even though it has nothing to do with how they operate on the job. I need to do more research, but I'm bald. I have alopecia, and so like, what's the research say about bald people in the workplace? I don't know if that even exists, but I know I feel
Yeah.
differently. I know I like show up and think really hard about whether I'm going to wear a wig today or a hair wrap today, what that means, and I predict I didn't get a job recently because I had a head wrap on. And I can't
Mm.
prove that, but like there really wasn't any other reason why I didn't continue on in the job search
Yeah.
aside from I had this bright pink visible difference on my head and I don't know like what's associated with that.
Exactly. And I'm not sure. I think there might be research going into more like different hairstyles and whatnot.
Mm,
I'm not sure if there's any on baldness, but it's also interesting because so how I the theory behind my research, I'm using expectancy violations theory, which
mm,
is a it's a communication theory and it talks more about nonverbal behaviors and particularly like cultural differences and how close we stand to each other when we're talking. Um, but I think this would relate to what you're talking about. Um, for my research, I'm suggesting that tattoos are a violation of what we expect
mhm.
because approximately 33% of the US population is tattooed, and
Hmm.
most of those are not visible tattoos. So we're not expecting to see people with visible tattoos. Similarly, like being presenting as a woman and not having hair is not what we expect when we're interacting with someone with the more feminine presentation. So I think that theory would apply to what you're talking about as well.
Yeah, it's just not meeting that initial expectation. And women are already so penalized for not meeting the gender
Yeah.
expectations if they're in leadership roles. It's just adding another thing to the list we have to worry about.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
So, through your research, like what recommendations do you have for hiring managers or just like people out there that want to have more inclusive workplaces, especially when those expectations aren't met?
Yeah, so this is what I think is interesting about the findings from my research because, we hear about policies around appearance, and I think a lot of companies are moving away from this now, but there have been even bigger global companies that have in their policies no visible tattoos. But I think from what I'm finding is that it's not about the tattooed person. It's about the observer. So how can we elicit more of those positive stereotypes about
Mm,
tattooed people, like the artisticness, instead of the riskiness? How we do that is a great question. But I think even in how we have media representation, so even in posters or media clips, like we can see if we involve tattooed people in ways that show more of those positive stereotypes instead of the negative, we can move towards more acceptance of that. And that includes in the workplace too, like in their media communications or how they're discussing people in the workplace.
can I ask you a personal
Yeah.
question?
Yes.
Has there been a time where you think you might have been discriminated against because of your tattoos?
So, in terms of work circumstances, I don't think so, but it's always little micro things too. Like
Yeah.
it's more of those microaggressions. I can tell one story that I'm sure there's other things that went into this, but when I got my palm tattooed, I was living in Kingston, Ontario. I took a train to Montreal, which is like 2 to 3 hours. And I thought I could go to Montreal and back to Kingston, including the tattoo, in one day. I was wrong. The tattoo took longer. So I had to get a hotel and I was trying to book it online. It wasn't working for me. And I was on the phone with my mom and she goes, Alyssa, you can walk into a hotel and ask for a room. Of course. So I go into quite a nice hotel and I go up to the front desk and I asked if there's any rooms available for the night. And just to paint a picture, I am in an oversized t-shirt that has a skull on the front that is also from a tattoo shop in shorts. So I have my full leg tattoo showing and like another skull tattoo showing. And my newly tattooed palm is wrapped in saran wrap. I probably smelled pretty bad too because I've been sweating. I don't think there was AC in the studio. And the woman at the front desk turned me down for a room. She said that there weren't any available. So
Wow.
yeah, and I'm tired and I'm hungry, so I go outside and I call my mom again and I'm like, I just don't know what to do. I could keep going to hotels, but I'm so tired and I just want to eat and lay down. So my mom goes online and booked me a room because there were, in fact, rooms available. So I go back in and I go up to the same person at the front desk, like, oh, I actually booked a room online. Oh, that's interesting. Like, okay, I don't know. Like, it was a nice hotel, but and there could be other factors that went into that, but I can't help but think that the tattoos played a role in that.
Yeah. 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 And that's the thing, like, don't gaslight yourself about it,
Mhm.
like, it sounds exactly what was happening, and I think it's the same thing with me in that job, and, like, I think I
Mhm.
got perceived, and this is me extrapolating, so, take with a grain of salt, but, like, "Oh, she can't do her hair for a job interview with the CEO." It's like, I that was me doing my hair, I was wearing that hair wrap,
Yeah.
like, it wasn't me being lazy or, trying to intentionally defy their expectations. I just had a bald
Yeah.
head on underneath it. I didn't want to show you my bald head.
Yeah.
I don't want to wear an itchy wig.
Exactly. It's so interesting the assumptions that people will make based on how you're presenting yourself, um, when it could be completely wrong.
Yeah. So thank you for sharing that story. I think it's really important, and I think people can learn more about what the situation is. Because like people who don't have visible tattoos or visible differences in general, they it's hard to understand what that experience is like. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, and that's so true. I find often when I'm talking to people that don't have visible tattoos or don't have tattoos at all, they'll say, "Oh, but it's different now. Like tattoos aren't an issue." Like, sure, in a larger sense, they're not as much of an issue as they used to be, but like as you've experienced with visible differences, um, there are still those situations and they're microaggressions a lot of times too. So it's not overt discrimination. A lot of times they're not going to tell you, like in the hiring context, they're not going to say, this is why we didn't hire
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
But those things are still playing a role.
It reminds me of second degree workplace
Mm.
sexism. So, like, at least 50 years ago, women knew exactly where they stood, right? Like, there was no
Mhm.
question about how women were treated and where they stood in the workplace. But now we have this, like, second degree type of sexism that we have to deal with as women, where you're not sure if you got passed up by that promotion because you're a woman, or for there were some other reasons, even how you just told your story, like there might have been other factors going on, like no, like let's just call it as it is, like that woman discriminated against you, and that's horrible, and like, but we have to second guess ourselves and like sometimes gaslight ourselves because we don't want to believe it's true, but it is true, and we
Mhm.
know these things, and I think the research that you share is really telling, because it's actually getting that gaslighting out, because it's tested in a valid way to be able to demonstrate, like, yes, like people do think these things about people with the, what are they called, the, not the, what's the opposite of the friendly?
Oh, the intimidating?
Intimidating,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
intimidating tattoos, yeah, yeah, or my intimidating bald head, I don't know. Did you pull from other literature as well, like the research I mentioned about, when people are overweight, they're perceived to be certain ways in the workplace? Did you pull from different areas of research as well for your dissertation?
Yeah, so I don't know if it's the same like research that you're talking about, but I do reference one about weight because one of the factors that I didn't mention as part of my research because there was nothing significant. So I actually should share it. But I was really interested in leadership and if leaders with tattoos are treated differently than coworkers, like peer coworkers. So there is a study, I believe, that was looking at leaders' weight. And so I did pull a little bit from there. And yeah, there's so I shouldn't say so much. There's a growing body of research, I feel, on appearance in the workplace,
Hmm.
and especially with the hybrid work too, and how that's kind of shifting appearance in some ways.
So, and I'm curious, do you plan on continuing to do this work when you're done with your PhD?
That is a great question. I'm not entirely sure yet. I would love to continue tattoo research because I have so many research questions, even like as an example, I think it's really interesting. All of the research on hiring is from the perspective of hiring managers. So would you hire this person with tattoos? But I also hear from people, like tattooed people, oh, I wouldn't want a job somewhere that's not accepting of tattoos. So that like
Mm,
self-selection in or out of organizations based on that, um, as an example of what I would love to do moving forward. But post PhD, I will be starting a postdoctoral fellowship at the University of Calgary.
oh, nice.
And yeah, I'm working with my undergrad honors supervisor, Dr. Nick Turner, and he does a lot on workplace safety, which is why we work together in the first place. So for the postdoctoral fellowship, we're talking about doing research on knowledge translation and dissemination.
Nice.
So trying to find out how best we can do that in like a business field. And then maybe some side projects on tattoos because I would love to continue.
I love it. I love it. Well, for those watching out there, like what recommendations do you have like for the hiring managers, for the people who are in the position of power to not let that expectancy bias take root and unintentionally discriminate against a potentially awesome candidate because of their tattoos?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think it's trying to get more familiar
Mm,
with tattoos and the tattoo culture. And I don't mean like get immersed in it, just more interaction with it because it's social contact theory or hypothesis. There is some theory on when you have more contact with a group, you're
yep.
less likely to be biased against them. So I think just getting more knowledgeable on the variety because of course there are, you know, tattooed people that are deviant, but there are non-tattooed people that are deviant too. So
Yeah.
just trying to familiarize yourself and interact more, to see that tattooed people are just like other people.
I use contact theory a lot in my work with allyship, and it's
Mm,
like
oh
one of my
yeah, of course.
secret sauces to allyship is just getting people who are different to work together, and by just sheer contact and having that
Yeah.
relationship we're going to reduce the biases that we hold against that group. I talk about it in my forthcoming book. I have a forthcoming book, How to Be an Ally.
Saw that. Amazing.
Yeah, so two books in one, but I talk about it
Yeah.
on both sides about like this is the advantage of being with people, interacting with people who are different than us, is that we're better
Hmm.
because of it. We're less biased because of it. So, oh, that's wonderful.
Exactly.
Okay, well, Alyssa, I could talk to you all day about visible differences in the workplace. What if people wanted to reach out to you? What's the best way for them to get in touch if they want to learn more about you and your research?
Yeah. So basically anywhere that, so my social media or email, and I have a website, which is again just my first and last name.com, and that has all of my contact information as well as like a form that you could fill out to contact me. So plenty of ways, and I'm responsive on all of the channels. So I'm always happy to talk about this research and whatnot.
Thanks for being a great role model too to other academics for disseminating research in a digestible way. We need more of that in this world. So thank you.
Yeah, amazing. And thank you. You're doing great work as well. So I'm really happy to be on the podcast.
Well, happy to have you. Well, thanks for all you do to help us be better.